Okay, here we go. I'm about a month behind on getting this started. This video I'm calling the basic brief. So it'll be longer than most of the videos, but you need to catch up and know, at least for now, most of the story. I'll definitely get emotional at different points, and I will try to be authentic and not edit them out of the video or pause it and let it out and then come back, but I can't promise anything. I think it's really important that the frequency of the emotion is captured as well as the story and the words. So here we go. 2025 was the year of the snake. It was a year of shedding. And especially the last 6 months were really transformative. And there's many perspectives that you can use when your life goes through these types of transformations. You can describe them as loss. You can make other people the villain in your story, or you can describe it as surrender. You can understand that if you don't answer the call to let go of certain things, they will be removed. And in that perception, someone is the villain. The story has been traumatically ended instead of the surrender and letting go. And so many times in my life, I've had to get to the point of the traumatic ending in order to let go and move on. A lot of that is because when I was young, there was a lot of loss. And what seemed like constant loss, constant turmoil, constant trauma, constant changes, big changes all the time, every 2 years approximately. And so then, as a young adult, I used to quit things really quickly and surrender too easily to the challenges. So as I became an adult, I got to a place where I didn't know how to let go anymore. I didn't know when was the time to surrender and when was the time to quit and when was the time to double down or buckle down and work harder to overcome the challenges that were being presented to me. But starting December 2024, I became better at listening, and I started to understand that 2025 was going to challenge me to apply everything I've learned over the past decades about life and spirituality and faith, to trust more in the universe than ever, to trust my inner voice more than ever. And so this year, though I didn't always immediately let go to the extent that I needed to, I was much more prepared and ready to at least loosen my grip bit by bit until the call was finished to loosen the grip or to fully let go. So starting approximately June of 2025, my first big call to surrender came. and that was to let go of my shop. I've been running a business for several years that was successful and popular, and that for the most part I enjoyed doing. But I began to notice that aside from the business challenges and financial challenges that had arisen in the business, my body started to react viscerally every time I had to do a task associated with the business. And at this point, anything that came up with the business, the act of performing the business, I would break out into sweat over my entire body. Fight or flight response over something simple and easy. And the sweat, the stress sweat, had the most awful odor. I've never had body odor. And so it was something that became really clear to me that my body's rejecting my reality. My body, my physical self, is rejecting what I'm forcing it to do. And I'm really good at pushing myself through very extreme circumstances. I've done it many times. I've lived all over the world. I've picked up my life and I've started over many, many, many times. But now, at almost 44, I've learned that those reactions from the body are sort of the final stage before the trauma comes. The final stage of your spirit trying to get the message through to you that it is time to let go, even if that is your security, even if that's your job, your income, the way you derive money, the way you pay bills, the way you survive, the way you contribute your part to the life you're building with yourself or with your partner. So letting go of that bit of security is very, very, very hard. And my body is slowly forgiving me for holding on too long. But I gave up my shop. Then, about a month later, I started to realize I'm still reacting this way. I was running my business online only. I had given up the shop and we had moved to the floors above the shop where our home had been for many years, the entire time, so almost 4 years at this point. And I noticed my body's still reacting this way. Every time I have to do something associated with this, I also began to recognize that it wasn't only the shop and the business, but it was the entire environment. And I'll get into some other videos, sort of what was going on around me in the environment that started to be revealed to me. The more I let go of what I had created, this energetic bubble and this energetic field of protection, of divine favor over the place that I had manifested my reality, the more that the external reality, the manifestations of others, began to flow in, and the more the reality of what had been happening behind my back was revealed to me by Spirit. And so it was mid-July that I started to realize that my body was still reacting and that I was being required to make further sacrifice. So I gave notice on the property where I was living, we were living, and I gave the landlord, who had required previously 60 days notice at the last minute to give up the shop, I went ahead and I gave 10 weeks notice and I thought it was quite generous, and began to look for a new place where we could live and build a new life and run the business. And I really believed at the moment that it was just the environment that was holding the business and myself back from the success that seemed to be knocking at the door all the time. And about 2 weeks later, and again, the more I surrendered, the more was revealed to me, the more truth was able to come through, because I wasn't holding on anymore to the reality that I had constructed and the false beliefs and the systems that I had manifested in place to secure my life. So about 2 weeks later, it became evident to me that I was being called to stop putting any energy into my business. And so 2 weeks later, on August 1st, I closed my business. I think the hardest part of that was that I loved what I had created, and I was exceedingly proud of all of the things, all of the facets and aspects of the business that were unique to it and that didn't exist in any other business in town or any other that I had ever seen before. And it was the culmination of 20 plus years in international retail that I applied everything I knew to this and executed it all. I taught myself graphic design on YouTube in order to create packaging and graphics for the shop. We had a mascot and a cast of characters, all of which I had created, and recipes that I had created, and a beautiful, unique market segment that only had been created by me. But I knew that it was best and that I had a higher calling and that something was aching to come through, but that I had no energy to do. 14 hours a day running the business, I was exhausted at the end of the day because it was draining me. It was not serving me. So when I served all of my energy into it, nothing was coming back. And I knew I couldn't do multiple things or any additional thing if I continued to run that business. So I closed the business and continued selling off the assets that we had started to sell off when we closed the shop. And now it was the equipment, the heavy equipment, the kitchen equipment, and the things that we had moved upstairs. So I spent 10 weeks cleansing, clearing all of that stuff, starting to write every day. I had gained a lot of weight because of the stress levels, the cortisol levels in my body, not at all from diet, but from pure stress. And now, as I gave up my income and sold off my assets for next to nothing, I didn't have the money to even buy shoes for the gym. So I started to walk every day in my sandals just to take some power back and just to take some action toward creating a new reality. And a side note here, something I learned along the way is as one life begins to taper off, the next one begins to, taper in. Can I make that? Taper off and in? I don't know. But if you took two tapered candles, you would see as one begins to get wider, or, thin at the top, they widen as they go away. So as the old reality tapers out, the new one tapers in. And it is really just step by step. It is really just day by day that you manifest a new reality. So that was my first step toward transforming what I didn't like and what I knew how to fix. And then selling off some assets, I was able to buy gym shoes and start putting more energy toward that. Put more energy toward writing in my journal every day, documenting what was happening, and that way I could commune with spirit better. Because sometimes when I talk or when I write, I end up speaking into my own truth or writing into my own truth as the channel comes through, and I'm able to better understand and have a better perspective of what I'm going through, what I'm witnessing, what is manifesting, what is the core lesson, or what I should be focusing on. So those 10 weeks were quite difficult, but at the same time, I started to live in a way that I hadn't in a long time. Date night had always been Monday because it was the only night that I was ever free to do anything. And so suddenly it didn't have to be Monday anymore, and I could go out to dinner. I could do other things. And I slowly started to build life that way. Take myself out to lunch, go to the mall to do writing, go out and get some sun, go to the gym every day and spend time, and even walk home to get extra sun, burn extra calories, and just live instead of be trapped in the bubble that I had created that all of the succubuses were leeching energy off of. We'll get into that at a different time. So 10 weeks later was October 5th. I mean, that was more than 10 weeks, but almost 11 weeks later was October 5th. We moved out of our place into a new place, which was lovely. It seemed to be energetically sound and enough space and a new place for us to begin living again. And instead of choosing a place where we could run the business, which had started to prove challenging when we first started looking, we were now in a place that we had only chosen where to live. There was no other reason to be there other than that was the place chosen. We didn't have to worry about the business or moving all of the things or changing the business location registration and blah, 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 blah. I had released, I had surrendered, and I had not only lightened my own load and my own obligations and responsibilities to those things, but I had lightened them for my partner as well, and created freedom for both of us from those obligations and those things that had been controlling and determining our decisions for so many years. Because we were free from that, I was able to go on a few trips with my partner, and again, to live again, to feel free and feel lighter and shine my light in a way, and meet people at the hotels and engage with people, and have people recognize things about me that no one had seen so long, because for so many years I had only become my business. Everything about me, everything everyone knew about me, every way that everyone identified me, even my partner, was around my business. How much money I was able to make, how happy I was able to make them, what I could do for them, how I could appease them, how I could beg them to read messages and meet delivery drivers and do the most basic things that most people know to do, but I kept perceiving that people were getting worse and worse at doing. They couldn't even help themselves anymore. And selling off the assets was an absolute nightmare. Dealing with people was incredibly tedious. And I just often thought, you're the one that wants this. So why aren't you the one following through, reading messages, picking up whatever it was? So I was able to go on a few trips with my partner, which was incredible. It was so good for me. I hadn't been able to travel in years because I was always working. All I did was wake up in the morning, go downstairs to run my business all day, 14 hours, go upstairs and shower and go to bed. For a while, I was getting up at 5 so I could make some time for the gym, and then injury kept me out for a year. That's another story. So at this point, my whole life had revolved around that. And even the way that my value in my relationship had been established was my ability to contribute from the business. So I had surrendered all of my personal power to this thing I had created. And to be honest, I was quite relieved of it, but at the same time, anxious and fearful of what I would do next. So it was on the second of these trips that I had a conflict with my partner, which was reoccurring. It had happened before. And again, this is another story, but my partner decided that it was best if we ended our partnership. So after 7 years, I was going to be without my best friend. And the person that I had talked to every day and made every decision around or with or evaluating and cleaned for and cooked for, which we had eaten out for years because I was always running the business and we didn't have a private kitchen. So it was incredible to me to be able to cook again for a while, and I love to cook and I love to take care. So I enjoyed that, but I was suddenly going to be without it. And that second trip was in Da Nang, where I now live. And again, that's another story that I'll share and tell at on a different video. But anyway, a few days later, I went back to Hanoi and we talked, and when you love unconditionally, it means that you don't love somebody because they're serving you or making you happy. You love them when they're happy. And so if they tell you that their happiness is more likely to exist if they're alone, then you have to give them that. You cannot resist that. Because if you resist it, then that's not unconditional love. That's you loving them when they serve you. And so I told my partner that I would put on a happy face and that I would support his decision, and I would disguise my emotions in order to make it easier. And that I recognized how difficult it was and how brave he had to be to say those words in a non-hurtful, non-attacking way, but where he had taken full ownership over his desire to serve what he thought was best for himself. And so that's what I did. And it was about a week later that, because of what had happened here in Da Nang, the night that my relationship had ended, that I decided I would move here. I decided that the night that my life tapered out in this place, that the new one had begun. It had begun to taper in. And so that's what I did. And that's what I started to move toward. I spent the next 5 weeks doing everything I could to prepare and to get rid of things that I wouldn't be able to take. And to reduce my life to a few pieces of luggage. I had been in Hanoi for 8 years, and at 43, I had never lived in one city more than 6 years. I had reduced my life to a few pieces of luggage before when I moved to Vietnam in 2017. And at that time, I had resources to make that move and to secure what I needed to begin a new life without worrying about securing a home or eating or these basic things that, especially as you get older, become very controlling over your decisions. Because the sense of security that you have the resources to pay for somewhere to live and eat, they determine most of our adult lives. But this time, at 43, I had spent 5 months already in surrender. I had already lost my family due to the boundaries that I created in my life and my desire to not tolerate toxicity or lack of ownership or accountability for behavior and actions from others. I had lost my friends. When I closed my shop, I also deleted my Facebook that I had, almost decades. I deleted Instagram. I had already stopped listening to pop music in the autumn. I stopped watching TV. I stopped um, indulging in pleasures of the flesh, I think is a polite way to say it. I had started to work out. I had transformed my diet. I had lost my home twice, or surrendered it, I want to say, because I didn't lose anything. You're never losing anything. Things are being removed that don't serve you, but they're never lost. The divine has a plan and everything has a purpose. So it is about your perspective, the way that you see it, and the way that you are able to face and handle the grief and the pain. So I had surrendered my home twice. I had surrendered my friends. I had surrendered my social media and therefore contacts of people that I had known for decades from all over the world. I had surrendered my sense of security. I had surrendered the business and reputation I had built. I had surrendered everything that made me feel secure and everything that I could turn to for resources or for help in this time that now, as I was required to surrender my marriage, resources that I really needed. But my marriage was the last standing tower of my life. Everything had now been surrendered. And in the 5 weeks before I moved, even my health began to deteriorate. And you'll hear it probably, I hope not anymore, but maybe in a lot of the videos to come, that I'm suffering from these headaches that just will not let up on me. And I'm sure that it is a manifestation of the pain and emotional turmoil that I've been going through. But I have insomnia that I do everything that you can read on the internet to deal with. I try very hard, but that has been something persistent in my life. Again, that's another story when that started, but it has been part of my life for a really, really long time, at least 20 years. And so now the headaches, that they come when I lay down. So when I lay down to get rest, to heal from everything that's happened, the headaches come and they make it worse. They inhibit my ability to gain rest, which is necessary for healing. But I'm working on it, just like I'm working on everything else. So then, November 25th, I left my home, my new home, and I left my partner sleeping in bed as I went to the airport with my luggage. And although I believe in the divine plan, And I have so much faith in where I'm being led. That doesn't heal your heart. It doesn't heal your mind. And that's why I'm making these videos. That's why I'm going to be so vulnerable and raw. Because people face this all the time. And as humanity moves into the greatest awakening that we have ever known, I should have kept some tissue around here. As we move forward into this, more and more and more of you will be facing these what we call tower moments, where these really strong, steady vestiges of our lives are either going to crumble and fall on top of us, or we are going to be required to surrender, to walk away. And if we do it when we're called, we can actually dismantle, take down the tower, take apart the pieces, salvage some things. But if you resist the call and you do not do what you're being called to do, if you're unable to let go from fear or anxiety, things will get worse and worse and worse until they crumble on top of you. And that's why I knew my partner had been so brave to do what he did, because he didn't want the tower to crumble and smash us both. So, before this ends up 45 minutes long, everything that I have spent 43 years of my life creating outside of myself is gone. My whole life has changed. My entire reality, everything that brought me security, everything that ensured I would be able to provide for and take care of myself has been surrendered. But everything that I built inside myself is in its glow-up phase. And I know that it is time to shine that light onto the whole world. Not just to my business, not just to my partner, not just to the people immediately around me, but to use this platform and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook to share the reality of what it means to start over with nothing except your faith. Your angels by your side, your spirit team, the divine plan, the divine guidance, and listening to your intuition. During this great awakening of humanity, now is the time. And I'm not the only one that goes through this. I'm not the only one whose heart is broken. But there is a frequency of the message. There's a frequency behind the intention of sharing this. There's the frequency of my voice that might help you heal. that might give you a little bit of strength when you feel alone, when you're afraid of how you are going to provide for yourself, how you are going to keep a roof over your head and food in your mouth. Your faith should be the first place you turn to. All of the answers are inside of yourself, but the frequency of my voice and of the intention behind these videos might just be the thing that helps you get through the next minute, hour, day, month, week, year. So, on YouTube, I will share the long form videos. On TikTok, I will talk about the basic lessons. On Instagram, I will share the short form videos, and Facebook as well. And I hope that aside from all of the judgment that will come my way and all of the negativity that people will feel, I hope that there are some people that will resonate with the message and that will know I'm not alone. If he can do it, I can do it too, because I am a foreigner where I live. And I don't have any place to go. There is no choice for me other than to create, to manifest, to call in, to listen to act when called, so that I can have a new reality unfold where I am right now. That's why I left Hanoi. It was time for me to stay in the country that I call home now, but to step into a new environment. To be in a place that I felt spiritually attuned to, that I felt I had been called to, where I had been left after my relationship ended, alone for a couple of days, in a place that is so beautiful, that has my favorite landscape, which are mountains next to the beach and the ocean. To follow the signs, to follow the guidance, the same way I did moving here to Vietnam 8 years ago. And so now, good luck to me. Good luck to all of you. And if you've been through this video, if you have sat here with me for 43 minutes and 33 seconds as I said that, thank you. And I hope that you'll join me on this journey. That you will like, follow, subscribe, that you'll share it with a friend maybe who's going through some of the similar things. Whether they're younger, whether they're older, at any age, the truth remains the same. If you follow the call that's coming from inside, you're going to make it. You're actually going to be better. People are saying to me, oh, you're going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. I'm going to be great. But today, my heart is broken. Today I have headaches. I have fear. I lack resources. My heart is broken. And I don't want to change the reality of what has been. I don't want to pull my partner back. I don't want to pull my business back. I want to release that which doesn't serve me. I want all of this to have been for the best. For me, for him, and for anybody who receives this message, anyone who listens, anyone who resonates, anyone who needs a shoulder, who needs to know they are not alone. That's what these videos are going to be. And I'm going to do my best to be disciplined, to be here every day, to share the reality, the challenges, the fear, the sadness, the sorrow, the joy, the happiness, the fun times. And we're going to go through this together until we have invited in and are experiencing the reality that our soul already understands is waiting for us. Thank you so much. For anybody who already knows me that is watching this, don't worry about me. I don't want that energy coming toward me. If you know me, you know I am amazing, and that my faith runs deep, and that love guides every decision I make, and in that you can do no wrong. So 46 minutes and 52 seconds later, I'll catch you in the next one. That's the basic brief.